Here on the east coast of Kenya, Rocha is helping to restore the ecological imagination of this community, the link between the well-being of the forest and creek and their own lives. Rocha has pioneered assets, the Arabuko-Sokoke Schools and Ecotourism Scheme, a holistic conservation intervention that addresses root causes of exploitation and pressures on the Arabuko-Sokoke Forest and Mita Creek, and helps to meet the socio-economic needs of the adjacent communities.
We are at Ngala Memorial Girls Secondary School, and these are some of the students that we are supporting with the Assets program.
Assets provides secondary school bursaries using funds from equitable ecotourism at these sites. This ensures that the surrounding communities receive a direct benefit from the conservation of these habitats. It's a benefit that is also widely and fairly distributed for the long term. Assets' target is to support all 36 primary schools near the forest and creek by 2015. With initial funding from the UNDP GEF Small Grants Program, Rocha launched Asset in 2001 and created Asset's very own ecotourism facilities and services.
My name's Rocha. I'm at Mita Creek Assets Boardwalk, and this boardwalk, it has played a very important role in the bursaries. When the tourists visit this bird hide, they pay some money. The money is used to pay secondary school bursaries. If it could not be the mangrove and the forest or Mita Creek, then I could not make it to secondary school.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening. In front of you is the Arabuko-Sokoke puppeteers, ready to present a play about conservation.
The beauty about Assets is that it works as a cross-cutting program. It utilizes, mobilizes, and unites diverse stakeholders, the Ministry of Education,
otherwise would not have gone to school if it were not for Rocha and Assets,
local schools, government wildlife agencies, village elders, grassroots organizations, other NGOs, and the tourism industry. But at its heart is community relationships and accountability. That's what drives Assets.
Today we are at Mkongani Primary School, which is in Kilifi District. And we are working closely with Wildlife Club patron here and the Wildlife Club students. And today we are doing a tree nursery establishment. We are in the process of now digging holes so that we can make the shed and sow seeds. Objective is to have a very good tree nursery by the students themselves. This school is about 1 kilometer away from the forest, and most of the students who live in this area actually are students who are bordering with the forest, and they have got a very close contact with the forest. This is a skill that they will use not only here in school, but they'll also be able to use in their homes. They can plant in their farms, even make their own income. So we are trying to reduce the pressure on the forest and the resources by introducing such activities for the students and the community to learn from them.
Through the relationships with Assets adopted primary schools, tree nurseries are born. Forest and creek replanted and restored, the next generation recruited, and the impact of Rocha's environmental education amplified.
We learned the importance of forest from Mr. Sofa, that conserving the environment is a way of helping ourselves in our lifetimes. After we have learned from Mr. Sofa, then we pass that message by explaining them the importance of the forest conservation.
As for the core relationships with Assets beneficiaries and their families, it is defined by a reciprocal commitment of care. Their care is expressed practically through hands-on conservation action, such as tree planting on special events called beneficiary days, as well as through personal ownership and investment. The bursaries do not pay 100% of the school fees, so families share in the responsibility, and they're also required to make a small contribution to the Assets fund. Most importantly, families pledge to refrain from illegal logging and poaching, as well as destructive practices such as slash and burn farming. Families of beneficiaries are also given tree seedlings for growing in their shambas or farms, an alternative source of income, timber, and fuel. And appropriate technology is also taught. At the end of the day, assets provides much more than just financial help. It is giving an alternative principle by which to live and is restoring an identity of environmental stewardship. What does a Rocha really do? Whether here in Kenya or elsewhere on the 5 continents, our conservation work is focused on scientific research and monitoring, practical conservation, environmental education. And we do this through fostering authentic community relationships and partnerships. And why does a Rocha do conservation? As a Christian organization, underlying all we do is our faith in the living God who made the world, loves it, and entrusts it to the care of human society. The truth about conservation work is that 90% of it is with people, human nature. But how can women and men change the way they live? Over the past 25 years, a Rocha has been working towards a conservation practice which goes beyond needs-driven solutions to address core beliefs and principles that motivate people's behavior. For us, a more fundamental question is not, what does humanity need to do in order to change? But who are we and who do we need to be?
We are on the far southwestern corner of the forest, near a place called Dida. This actual site is called Kahingoni. And we're just about to go into the forest behind us here to do a transect, bird transect, counting the common species of the forest. This is part of a monitoring program that we're doing for the forest, doing transects every 2 weeks so that we can get an idea of what the birds are doing, whether they're increasing or decreasing, and also to get a better idea of the distribution and status of the birds. Arabuko-Sokoke forest is globally important for its plants, for its trees, its frogs and insects, for the birds. So, it's the 6 species of birds which are globally threatened that exist here.
These 6 avian species on the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species are often collectively known here as the Sokoke 6. They include the endemic Sokoke scops owl, Africa's smallest owl, found in the dense cyanometra thickets of the forest, and the spotted ground thrush, an elusive species that has captured the attention of a Rocha.
One of the reasons we're working down here is because of the endangered species and habitats. This being one of the most endangered species, this is really one of the ones we're trying to focus on and do regular monitoring. So we ring here twice a year to try and see if we can catch this bird. We also do an odd survey once in a while for this and collaborative work with the National Museums of Kenya.
Safeguarding Arabuko-Sokoke forest is so utterly pivotal to keeping these birds from extinction that BirdLife International ranks it as one of the 2 most important forests for the conservation of threatened birds on mainland Africa.
Is there another one near it?
A Rocha is committed to long-term biological research and monitoring, and we value our partnerships with Nature Kenya, Kenya Wildlife Service, BirdLife International, and many others. The Arabuko-Sokoke forest lies a few kilometers inland on the Kenyan coast, between Kilifi and Malindi, some 110 kilometers north of Mombasa. Kilifi is one of the poorest districts in Kenya. Once upon a time, Arabuko-Sokoke was part of an expansive coastal forest that stretched 4,000 kilometers from Somalia to Mozambique. But today it stands at 400 square kilometers. It is by far the largest and most intact coastal forest remaining in East Africa, and one of Kenya's last indigenous forests. As a result, Arabuko-Sokoke forest houses one of the richest and most threatened biodiversities in the world, with an exceptional concentration of endemic species, such as this creature. 90% of the world's population of golden-rumped sengi or golden-rumped elephant shrew are found here. The WWF has made East African coastal forests a priority in their Global 200 ecoregions program.
We're keen to really work with the communities in helping them to conserve the natural habitat around them. And as Christians, we feel very strongly that we have a responsibility to look after God's creation. And as people, as human beings, we are part of the environment. And so we can't conserve ecosystems and habitats and species without including people and working alongside with them. So it's a crucial thing to work with communities which are depending on or living beside the habitats and species that we recognize are threatened with extinction.
Immediately east of Arabuko-Sokoke Forest and forming part of the same habitat is Mida Creek. This is a tidal inlet that's linked to the forest by complex natural water flow systems and is designated as a UNESCO Biosphere Reserve and comprises mudflats with fringing mangrove forests. Some studies have identified it as one of the most productive mangrove ecosystems on Earth. Mida Creek is also designated as an important bird area, a vital passage and wintering area for Paleoarctic migrant waders.
Sandpiper, greater sandplover.
Rocha regularly records counts of over 6,000 waders here. Of international importance are populations of greater and lesser sand plover and the striking crab plover, a unique wader that nests in burrows. Mida Creek has a total of 69 recorded aquatic bird species. This mangrove ecosystem supports an ever-increasing population and is threatened by overfishing, over-extraction of groundwater, mangrove pole poaching, and damage to regenerating mangroves as fishermen search for bait. The challenges are many, and Rocha is grateful for those with whom we work alongside.
It's a very hard job.
To draw visitors here and sustain the bursary fund, Assets constructed a 270-meter suspended boardwalk of 17 bridges that meander through the mangrove forest to a bird hide. Rocha developed capacity and created a cadre of certified wildlife guides by training individuals, including Arafa and Alex, who have become experienced ambassadors of the creek and forest and assets. In the Arabuko-Sokoke forest, Assets has a 2-kilometer nature trail leading to a tree platform on an ancient baobab tree. A third Assets ecotourism facility was built at the Getty National Monument, another important bird area for endangered taxa like spotted ground thrush. The ancient ruins of this Arab city is one of the most visited attractions on Kenya's coast, so the fees collected here for Assets will take care of even more students. Back in the forest, on the bird transect, the team records not 1 but 3 cases of illegal logging.
So it's going on very much.
The threats to the forest are many: illegal logging, selective cutting, poaching for hardwood carvings, firewood collection, charcoal production, and agricultural expansion. But even textbook threats have a face.
I've met an old man cutting a tree down in Marafa forest. He was there actually sawing it into planks. And I talked to him and I said, "Hey, Mzee Bwana, do you know what you're doing to your forest?" He says, "This is not forest. You should have come here 10 years ago. This was real forest. This is nothing now." And I say, don't you know what the future holds then for you? He says, "But what do I do? What do I do? This morning, my children came to me and asked for money for school fees. So what do? I have to go. I have to find. There's no other way of getting money."
That there is no other way, no other resource, no other hope, is the cry of not one, but many. A shocking 90% of children in the Malindi district do not make it to secondary school, simply because they cannot afford the fees. Secondary school fees cost about $270 a year. The average income here is less than $1 a day.
Around Arabuko-Sokoke, in this part of the world particularly, the farmland is so poor in terms of its fertility and so on, that it's very hard for people to do very much more than scratch a living out of it. People are struggling to survive, and they can just about survive in terms of food and getting some second-hand clothing and so on. But when it comes to hard cash to pay for school fees, then they're struggling. And that's when they're forced to go into the forest to cut trees down, forced to go into Meadow Creek and fish with nets that are like mosquito nets, and to really overexploit the habitats.
I think Africa's greatest challenge is that of poverty. Now, to address this challenge of poverty, many think that development is the solution. But I think the real solution is sustainable development. But how do we address the issue of sustainable development? Are we really taking time to find out what are the root problems in Africa? What are the root causes of poverty? What are the root causes of this cycle that doesn't seem to be coming to an end? And I think for us to address these challenges, we need to go deeper than just the current approach of solving problems piecemeal or solving problems by reacting, to disasters. In trying to look at the way our livelihoods are based on natural resources, we need to think of how to creatively use our natural resource base without completely, wiping it out. And we need to do that at all levels, from grassroots, from governments, from the private sector, aid agencies. We need to be creative, and we need to learn to do things in a new way.
So this is why we felt, well, let's provide them with some relief on the pressure for bursary funds. Link it with a very strong conservation message that if you're found cutting trees, killing animals, etc., then those bursaries will be removed from your children. And we're now into an even more proactive stage where we're getting the parents of assets beneficiaries to form an association together, which will actually go into the forest to report illegal activities to the Forest Department and Kenya Wildlife Service, to work with them to really make sure that this cutting and illegal work stops.
At first, I used to cut those trees, small trees. I have to dig them so that I can get firewood. But after the assets introduced to us about the conservation, I didn't cut any other tree from the forest. I had to conserve it, and the forest became very green. And I'm wishing to conserve the forest more because I'm getting something from the assets, which is through the forest.
I had the privilege of interviewing some of the children who'd been through the Assets program, also their parents and some of the teachers, and just hearing how their minds have been changed and how their behaviors have changed with respect to the environment gives us confidence that this was a good grant.
Looking at what these kids give back to conservation, I really feel like Assets is doing the right thing.
Arusha, Kenya has been really successful because right now the local communities themselves have become the champions for environmental conservation because they can see direct benefits from their conservation efforts. But more than that, they feel valued. They feel that they're an important aspect of that conservation intervention, and they're more motivated to be part of the conservation work, but even become the ones that safeguard the environments that they derive their resources from. And I think in that way, Arusha, Kenya has provided a model and will continue to provide models on how to do conservation that not only addresses the concerns of the biological processes, but also looks at the real issues of the people, because the people are integral to those ecosystems.